Recipients are judged to have made extraordinary contributions to the AAW and to the advancement of woodturning. Evidence of these contributions include commitment and exceptional service to the AAW, excellence of character, AAW membership of more than 10 years. There are people who have been recognized by other professional organizations related to the field of woodturning, and they obviously will have presented at conferences and symposia. I would now like to invite Mike Mahoney and Kip Christensen to the stage to present this year's award. You're on your own, Kip.
Yeah, this wasn't quite planned like this. As soon as you started to announce this award, Mike headed for the restroom. So while he's coming back, I'll just tell a quick story. He's right here. Let's applaud for Mike, and we'll go with what was planned.
Oh, sorry about that. I held it as long as I could. We've already mentioned the Lifetime Membership Award that we're giving to Richard Raffan tonight. Both Kip and I are Lifetime members as well. And I wanted Kip to come up here and say some things about Richard. Richard had a very profound part of my life because when I met him at the Utah Woodturning Symposium, I was wanting to be a professional woodturner, and Richard was the guy who was actually doing it. And you'll see the video here about Richard. But Richard was a guy who could take any lump of wood, not even a pretty lump of wood, and make it beautiful. And it was amazing how he could use design like that. Anyway, I'll tell you a quick story just about Richard. He was always, by the way, he always came to Utah for many years. We've had him in our homes. I've been to his home in Australia. Richard, Dale Nish, by the way, was the facilitator of the Utah Woodturning Symposium, and he brought in a bunch of dignitaries from Provo, Utah, where we lived, and Richard gave us a demonstration, and I was lucky enough to be his assistant that week, so I learned a lot, obviously. Well, Richard made this big, beautiful myrtle platter for the community, the community people who were watching, and they didn't know much about woodturning, but as an audience member of that demonstration, I was incredibly impressed, and you can only imagine what these people who didn't know much about woodturning saw. And they gave him a standing ovation when the demonstration was. And Richard is actually quite a showman if you knew him personally, and he really appreciated the applause. And I could see him kind of petting himself as he was taking in all the accolades, and he passed the bowl around. We all enjoyed the whole thing. And about a few minutes later, one of his students during the week asked him to show him how to jam fit a kind of a lidded container. And I could tell Richard was kind of peeved about the question, and Richard was busy still taking in accolades, but he decided to fix this jam chuck, and he chucked up this 2.5, 3-inch chunk of wood that he was going to use as a jam chuck. And I wasn't watching, but I heard it, and I heard the sound that was coming off the lathe. And I looked over there, and Richard was taking a skew across this square plank, and no tailstock. And I was thinking in my mind, the minute it happened, I go, "Oh, Richard, you better put a tailstock up." And the next cut, that block of wood hit him right here in the forehead. And he dropped to the ground with his hand over his forehead here like this. And I picked him up, and I said, "Let me look." And blood just shot out of his forehead like this. And you can imagine he was just the king of the world 30 seconds ago. And and it was a serious situation. So Dale Nish and I took him off to the emergency room, and and that was it. And later on that evening, I'm laying in bed, and I have a kind of a chuckle going on, and my wife goes, "What are you laughing about?" And I go, "Well, I just watched this incredible thing where Richard was just petting himself on the back, and then he's on the ground with blood spurting out." And so it was after the situation, it was kind of funny. Well, that block of wood still exists today, and it says right on there, Richard Raffan, 16 stitches. And Craft Supplies keeps it in their museum. So, but anyway, such a profound impact on my life, and I still today believe a lot of things that he taught me. And so thank you, Richard, for all you did for me. And Kip, can you please tell us a story that you know about Richard?
The first time I met Richard Raffan, I can remember this, it was in 1973. I was a student at Brigham Young University, and I was taking a woodworking class from Dale Nish. And Richard was visiting Dale because he was going to be highlighted in one of Dale's books. Well, Dale asked Richard if he would come and demonstrate to the class that I was in. And so he came, and he had us bring the lathe out from the wall so that the class could gather around. And then he had us bring a pedestal grinder and put it right next to him, just to his left, so it was facing him. He had already sharpened his tool, and he was ready to show us how to turn an 8 or 10-inch bowl. Well, he did a little bit of an introduction, turned the lathe on, started to turn. And if you've watched Richard turn, he's very aggressive, and it was really impressive. As soon as he felt the really keen edge go from his tool, he didn't keep turning. He stopped. He turned just a quarter turn toward the grinder, turned the grinder on, and freehand sharpening, which I think he still does. In about 2 seconds, he had a new edge, and he was back turning again, and the grinder never turned off. He left the grinder running the whole time during the demonstration, and he turned the bowl. Now, he never said anything about his grinding. But as an observant student who is soaking all of this in, it was a lesson that I remember that has been really profound for me ever since then. What I learned is that, of course, we all know that sharpening is important, but a lot of us like to push how much we can get out of a grind, right? Well, I learned from that you don't do that. As soon as your keen edge is gone, you sharpen it right away, so that you're always sharpening with a sharp tool. And the other thing that I learned is to get your grinding setup, whatever it is, close to you so it kind of calls to you. It's friendly, so you don't have to go across the room or move things. It's comfortable. Those were practical things. He never said anything about those in his demonstration, but I picked those up, and that's been really helpful to me over the years. Now, that's just one example of many things that I learned after watching Richard do several demonstrations and many conversations. He's had tremendous impact on the wood-turning community throughout the world, and he's very deserving of this reward, which I think is also overdue. And I would like to congratulate Richard. I communicated with him by email a couple days ago. He's not with us, but I think we're going to see a video from him, and would like to thank him on behalf of so many people for the contribution that he's had in us, not only as helping us learn how to turn, but as a friend.
I just was fascinated with the work that he was doing.
I always say without him, without Richard's support, I would not be turner that I am today.
Just having him for a mentor basically built my whole life in wood turning.
And Richard's authority is unchallenged. I mean, you go to I don't know if he goes to Symposia anymore, but if he does, people are going to be beating down the doors to see him.
It wasn't until 1987 I went in to watch Richard's demonstration. He was doing a production run and how he would set projects up. And I watched this and I couldn't believe what I was viewing, because in an hour and a half, he was producing, half a dozen scoops, a few bowls and some platters. And it was just amazing to watch. And that was at the time when I wanted to be a professional, but couldn't figure out how to do it. And then I thought, that's how you do it. Right after that demonstration, I kind of followed Richard like a young puppy around, and I'm pretty sure he thought I was a nuisance.
I've seen him demonstrate again for 25 years or better, and I still enjoy watching him demo. I'm always going to learn something, even though I know how he turns, I know his style, I know the maybe the projects he's doing. I've seen him do that particular thing before, but it's always worth watching again. It's a great show. He's very jovial, and his wry sense of humor is just something I really appreciate.
Well, just seeing him at work, and seeing how fluent his moves were and how efficient he was with the tools, was like something new to me. I had seen Woodturners, but they didn't seem to be that like straight to the point.
I first encountered Richard Raffan when I was about 16 years of age, but I didn't meet him at that time. I was in high school. So in high school, I came across this book, Turn Bowl Design. And in order to read it during the time I should have been doing homework, I put the cover of my science book onto this. So it looked like I was doing my homework.
When you say that Richard's competent, I mean, that's kind of the understatement of a lifetime. He has taught so many people that have gone on to become very good turners, professionals in their own right.
Richard would always throw out these little breadcrumbs to me when we had conversations. We played tennis or whatever we were doing, and they were breadcrumbs, and they weren't really direct answers, but mulling those breadcrumbs over, I figured out what he was trying to say, and it was very important to me.
Richard has in the past influenced so many of us woodturners, but continues to do it.
Without Richard's help, his influence, his millions and millions of response on my emails and everything, I would not be here today. I would not be a turner that I am today. I would not be able to make a living doing what I love.
Richard has firmly stuck by his idea that it's not necessary. Keep it simple,
My motto has always been find simple ways to use simple tools in order to get simple shapes. And I think this also was an influence from Richard.
He helped out so many people that I think he even doesn't realize how much he helped out a lot of the people, and how much he influenced a lot of the turners, either older generation or new one or new to come. I think his influence in the woodturning world is second to none.
I think Richard early on figured out that it was also about entertainment, and so Richard was the consummate entertainer, not to mention just an incredible skillful craftsperson. Put them all together, and then pretty much made, I tell everybody today that you're just watching Richard Raffan when I'm turning, because that's where I learned it from.
There are very few living legends, and naturally they're getting less all the time. And David Ellsworth is obviously one of them. Mark Lindquist is one, and Richard is another one. And in my mind, they are the three at the top of the totem pole. Richard, by his absolutely determination to make sure that things were done simply and easily. And if you put those three together, you have the wood turning revival.
This is a recorded message. Now, my excuse for not being with you is it would take me nearly 40 hours to get to St. Paul and probably another 30 hours to get back home. And that's an awfully long way to go for 3 days of wood turning, enjoyable though that would be. That was the excuse. The reason is more to do with my going a very long way to avoid getting onto an empty stage. I like to have a lathe between me and the audience. That's part of it. Also, I'm not keen on trying a live cross because I have far too many senior moments these days. When Mike Summerer contacted me last November about a lifetime membership for the AAW, it took me a few moments, maybe even a minute or so, to grasp that it was coming to me, this lifetime membership. It's not something that I would have expected. I am, after all, a foreigner, and you're all Americans. So anyway, it's enormously generous of you, and I thank you all very much indeed. I owe a lot to Taunton Press, who made such a wonderful job of my books and videos, and also to Dale Nish, who had me involved with the Utah Symposium for around 30 years. And it was from those that I got invitations to teach all over North America. It's something I've greatly enjoyed doing, passing on what I know of the craft to other people so they get more out of it. And I would have never met all those hundreds, if not thousands of people, but for the workshops. And meeting a whole range of people from all walks of life has greatly enriched my life. Now, for those who have been to some of my demos will probably have noticed that I really look up. And the reason for this is that I don't like to see a room emptying if I'm in the middle of a demo. But it does happen. It's happened on several occasions, usually when Mahoney is next door demonstrating how to nest out bowls. And you can't compete with that. But generally, you've been good enough to stay through my demos, right to the bitter end, and even kind enough to buy a few pieces, a few bowls and boxes. And for that, I thank you all very much indeed. Now, thank you again for those who emailed some very nice messages of congratulation, and also those who left comments on my YouTube channel. Much appreciated. And I'm very glad to have been some help to so many of you. Now I'll let you get on with your evening.